the Around the NFL podcast. It's already on the 2024 Cowboys bandwagon.
From the Chris Wessling podcast studio, it's Around the NFL. My name is Dan Hanzus, joined by heroes Gregg Rosenthal and Marc Sessler. And it is here. The best football weekend of the year, divisional round, playoffs. 8 teams remain. That means only 8 teams, Mark. One of them is going to hoist that Lambeau.
I keep hearing that it's the best football weekend, and I don't disagree in terms of the staging. But there are also 24 fan bases whose teams have been turned into dust. So it's not always you have to become just agnostic and be like, I'm just enjoying the sport at this point. And that's that I shift into that mode.
And I think you could probably relate to this. But I root for a bad team historically, always. So
that's true.
I'm used to, checking out emotionally on the team, like my team aspect. So as a football fan, by this time, even if it was a good season and you got picked off at the end of the regular season or earlier in the playoffs, I could look at these games and be like, we're not going to get pound for pound a better week of games. Now, the Championship Sunday, which is next week, is great too, Greggy. But this one, you get more variety, more spice. You get an underdog or two, which we certainly have here.
Yeah.
And it's just going to be a lot of fun.
To Mark's point, I think week one is a close second. If I had to choose, I do love me some.
That's
week
great
one.
too.
It's just like it's been so long of a build up, but there is something where everyone's just watching the same game. Doesn't it feel weird for us, dude? We're home on Saturdays, just watching one game. I was like, man, there's a lot of commercial breaks, and I'm enjoying it because every play, just you're rethinking it in a different way than you would in the regular season. But I hope this one delivers. It's a lot of pressure, seasons. Sometimes they're like the Packers season is so nice because there was no expectations. We weren't expecting much. I hope we don't put too much expectations on this weekend after all those blowouts last week.
Yeah, here's
these spreads are big.
Yeah, here's
a big spread weekend.
They are large.
Good data point here. I reached out to the research team and
What a team.
a person by the name of Cole Noble, which is a hell of a name. Let's start there. Quickly responded.
Could be a pen name, but that's fine.
I had asked since division realignment for the research team.
Yeah,
I like that.
He adopted a new name for the researcher.
Since division realignment in 2002, how often? This is my exact email.
Okay.
Sent by verbal text on phone as I was driving in. Hey there, period. Could you tell me, since division realignment in 2002, how often both number one seeds made it out of the divisional round? And then I had to do an edit because originally I had a period, and I was like, no, let me give the question mark. On the other side, how many years did both get picked off in their first playoff game? Question mark. Thanks, Slammer. Need it. Shows a playful, hey, we're all in this together, to put that exclamation point at the end.
A team. You're a larger team.
Yeah. Oh, we're talking football.
Yeah.
Hey, Dan. Since the division realignment in 2002, number one seeds are 29-13 in the divisional round of the playoffs. Of those 21 seasons, there have only been 11 seasons in which both number one seeds won their divisional round matchup. 22, which is last year. Interesting, which means 2 years in a row. Come on now. 20, 18, 17, 15, 14, 13, 9, 4, 3, and 2. Of those 21 seasons, there have only been 3 seasons in which both number one seeds lost in the divisional round. Does anybody know when that happened? It was recently.
So the Ravens lost recently.
The Titans got picked up by the Bengals, and the Packers lost to the Niners in 2021.
Okay.
In 2010, the Falcons lost to the Packers. That was the Rodgers
I was
gets
gonna
hot
say.
and wins the Super
I was
Bowl.
going to say, I was trying to think who was the one seed that year as the Patriots versus the Jets.
The best football moment of my life. Up in Foxborough. That was 2010. And 2008, the Titans again. Come on. Titans, come on. Even when you have a powerhouse team, this happens to you.
Although Kerry Collins was the quarterback, the most random one seed until the next time the Titans had the
I
one.
think they were like 13-0 or 10-0 or something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Anyway, the Titans lost to the Ravens and the Giants lost to the Eagles. So, great job by Cole Noble.
Did you? Well, where's
We're all in this together.
Did you verbalize an email that said "Thank you, Cole, for your"?
I just saw it. I'm going to do it right now.
Yeah, you got to write him back and say
Cole.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy. The
Thanks for
Packers We're the 1 seed 2 years ago.
Just gave
that
you
team that lost
a
in
shout
San
out.
Francisco. That was not a great team.
You're the.
Aaron Rodgers has never beaten
I don't know.
the Niners.
Cole Noble's probably a man, right?
We are still recording, by the way.
Yes, I would think Cole would be I would think. I don't know. Who knows? But like,
I was going to put you're the man. I'm going to put you're the best.
that's better.
All right, done. All right, so we're going to get to the games right now, and we got a little football news to get to. We'll do that as part of halftime. But let's get going, and let's start. Oh, Mark. Obviously, the Houston Texans are a underdog this week. They're one of the heavy underdogs. There are two teams. Man, two teams getting 9.5 points of wood, and they're one of them against the Ravens in Baltimore. So I feel like the Ravens haven't played in about 2 months, and it feels like that because they rested starters, then had the bye. And last time the Ravens did that, things went sideways for them. But the idea here, Greg, is that this is a different Ravens team, a better Ravens team than that 2019 team that got picked off. I don't even know if that's true, but that's what they're telling themselves. So the Ravens get a Texans team, obviously, that is feeling very confident about themselves, despite being a middling operation for most of the season. They have a young quarterback in C.J. Stroud that has them believing, and a head coach in DeMeco Ryans that just shut down the Cleveland Browns in a big spot.
I think this Ravens team is unquestionably better because they're more diversified offensively. The numbers would say they're still an elite running team, one of the best in the league, and the Texans have a run defense that could maybe slow them down, but the short passing game, the long passing game, and then especially compared to 2019, the defense, which, now that the Browns have taken a dirt nap, is certainly the best defense in the league. And I think the most consistent over the course of the season, too. And that's where I start is just we've seen Mike McDonald, and I think he's going to get hired, the defensive coordinator of the Ravens, in this cycle, because what he's done this year that basically no one else has been able to do is stop Shanahan tree offenses, which is, to me, the thing that is the most valuable thing you can do as a defense is slow down this offense that has basically taken over the league and has been a quarterback cheat code. And they did it against the Dolphins in a big spot just a few weeks ago. They did it against the 49ers in a big spot about a month ago. And now they do it again. Now they're going to do it, I believe, against C.J. Stroud and this Texans defense. And they do it with man coverage, but they mix it up. Stroud has struggled sometimes against man coverage, and they do it by mixing things up in terms of what they're going to do after the snap. So Stroud's been very good mentally all season, reading the coverage, getting through his reads. This will be a new test for him. He faced it in week 1. He struggled. He's a much different quarterback now. But to me, that this is a much bigger step up in class for the Texans offense, really, than it is for the Texans defense.
Yeah, I think like that week 1 game is, deep, ancient mythology at this point. I mean, it's like the Texans were a completely different team. The Ravens were at that point still figuring out who they were too. Like it was a week ago we were saying, can Stroud solve this Browns offense or Browns defense? We were touting for good reason. And now it comes again. It's the Ravens, and the Ravens they are a different team from the team that lost a couple years ago in the playoffs because.
Well, we'll find out.
Well, I would say this though, just coming in at least statistically.
Yeah.
They are 4th in average points per game, okay? They are 1st in points allowed, and that's a problem for Stroud. They are the number 1 rushing team in the league. All of those metrics basically have not been achieved by one team since the Bears of 1985. And I think I think a lot of it is because it's always
different.
It is Lamar Jackson, and it's the offense, and their offense is heated up. But this defense against C.J. Stroud, who last week created the highest passer rating in a wild card round by a player in his first playoff game in NFL history. Like Stroud's the real deal, and it's just like you've taken away 2 of their top 4 pass catchers, but it doesn't matter. Like Nico Collins is heated up, and I really want to see what this Ravens defense, 2nd in EPA against the pass, can do to solve Stroud, because I think Stroud, if you get last week's version, this to me is a dangerous. The way I felt when the Browns were facing the Texans was like that the last team I wanted to deal with, because the Texans, like the Packers, have nothing to lose. And it's like, I think there's this mounting pressure, no matter what anyone says, on the Ravens, on Lamar Jackson. Because even if you're an MVP this year, in a year where I kind of think there really is no true MVP in the sense that we would normally look at that award, like there is mounting pressure on Lamar Jackson to win this playoff game. If you lose this, like the narrative on you is pretty cemented.
Yeah, Yes.
It's not cemented at age 27. It's cemented
it's
till next time.
Well, it's as cemented as it is for Dak
so
Prescott
far.
right now.
Right.
It
But
doesn't mean it can't be changed, but
it'd be cemented like it was for Peyton Manning at age 27.
sure. And he eventually changed that as well. So, but you can't change any reputation or bad history around your game in the playoffs until you actually have that big performance. He has not been a good historically. Not only 4 playoff starts, but he's 1 in 3 of those starts. The numbers have not been good. So Jackson, they're just like there's a house of ghosts around Dallas. I don't think it's that way around Lamar. If it happened this weekend where he has a bad game and they get bounced in the first round, this is going to be something that really falls.
And Harbaugh, for that matter, they have not been back to a conference championship.
But Harbaugh's got a chip. I mean, he's got the pelt on the wall.
Just saying, they've had a lot of playoff losses since 11 years ago.
Absolutely. And as far as, I have a lot of respect for, obviously, the Ravens and how they go about their business and how they prepare for teams and make teams look bad. They've had not just a couple weeks here to get healthy, but also to study these Texans. And you watch it. We're just watching that, and you could check this out, the show on the FAST channels. You could look at the highlights, and it's just like, did the Browns even prepare for this game? The amount of wide open looks and the misdirection that left the Browns like completely spinning on their heels. I just don't see the Baltimore Ravens offering up that type of effort and performance. CJ Stroud, then you get to the big question, Greg. Stroud, who is absolutely different. He's a different type of rookie quarterback. But on this stage, if you start to cook him up a little bit and confuse him, does he start forcing the ball like young quarterbacks do and make the mistakes that turn this game into 24-7 in the third quarter?
He's been so careful with the ball all year. He's the chance that they have that he beats perfect coverage, that he just has an electric game, that he's the best quarterback on the field. That's possible, which is crazy.
Asking so much
for a rookie,
a 22-year-old.
The reason why I'm not as worried about it is the Ravens is like they've been in those games. They've been behind, they've been ahead, they've blown leads and then had to hold on to it. They've blown leads completely though, but there's so many different ways that they can win, whether it's offense or defense, and I think they'll have to keep up the Texans in this game. They haven't had a run game really all year. There's no reason to think it's going to start now. Marlon Humphrey's been out of practice. That's the one guy that hasn't come back to practice, so we'll see what his final injury designation is, but obviously that's a big one, their best cornerback. But I look at when Houston's on defense, and I look at those linebackers, and I just think they're going to get picked on in this one. Mark Andrews is practicing again. Suddenly you're going to have to deal with Andrews and Likely. They have a way of getting Flowers matched up sometimes over the middle of the field on these safeties and everything. And these Texan linebackers, they're a great run defense, whether it's, Perriman, whoever's out there, Tuo, like there will be some times where they're in pass coverage and they're just bad. They're bad. And I just feel like that's a spot where if the Ravens can't run the ball, and I could see this being, it's like a 3-point game in the third quarter. Like that's a lot of Ravens games are like that. But I think the passing game is where the Ravens end up having too many weapons. Even Rashad Bateman coming off his best game of the year, I think was significant in that Week 17 game against the Dolphins.
I think you need like the wideouts for Baltimore to be at their best. It's like it is on Zay Flowers to not have a kind of typical rookie playoff game where maybe you vanish a little bit. Odell Beckham, he is heated up, and there's hope to think that can happen. But like the Nelson Aguilar, Rashad Bateman, like these guys need to have a game in this thing. I mean, the Ravens are so tight on defense that they're 13-1 when they've scored at least 20 points. And I do think that there's like a road for them to really handle the Texans if they can coax them into mistakes. But that has just not been C.J. Stroud. 5 interceptions all year. And the one thing about the Texans defense, which I think gets kind of overlooked a little bit, is that they've only allowed over 125 yards rushing once all year, and it was to the Colts. Like, they're a pretty good rush defense. And so if you can put Lamar into a situation where he has to pass and has to rely on his pass catchers, like, that's where maybe mistakes come. But he has got 7 touchdowns and 0 picks over the last 2 routes that Baltimore has enacted on the Dolphins and the Niners. And so it's like this is the best version of the Ravens, and they're very dangerous.
Like I said at the top of the show, so it looks like 11 out of 22 years, one of the number 1 seeds gets picked off.
That's crazy.
So for everyone that's making their game picks going into this weekend, keep that in mind because you're just going to be attempted to just obviously circle the Ravens, circle the Niners, and then figure out the other two games.
Although historically, I suspect 2 9.5-point spreads is higher than average. Just putting that out there too. That these, like, by the numbers,
you should hit up Cole Noble on that.
Yeah, that would be a lot. But like, that these numbers are made by essentially just algorithms, and those algorithms spit out that the Ravens and the 49ers are two of the strongest, even though the records aren't crazy, but the numbers would say they're the two of the very strongest 1 seeds we've had in a long time.
Yeah. Although I would say if you look at the data, and we don't have it, unfortunately, so we're kind of up against the wall with the conversation, but I would show a lot of times it's probably around 6 points at least.
Yeah.
Once you have the number 1 seed involved. Now, with that said, I do believe in the Ravens. I do think they will be the team that I feel most confident in this weekend, and it's not a shot against the Texans or Marc Sessler directly, but the Ravens, I believe, Mark, are going to handle their business in a way they didn't the last time they were in this spot. So I'm going to lock up the Baltimore Ravens.
You set us up there. I thought you were kind of...
As the Zuzzer digs out of his own hole, I think I'm 7-1 in the last 8 weeks in the pick.
So I saw a figure from our Lock It Up account on Twitter that, like, no one has ever recorded less than 10 wins in the lock competition.
Oh, shoot. Where are we at right now?
I sit at 9. And so you'd think I'm going to
good.
I'm going to go do the safe thing and get to 10. I don't care because I think that's an exciting record to set if I were to fail too. But I'm going to do what I did last week because I think the Texans have a little bit of magic that no one sees coming. And so I'm sitting at 9 and 10. Nobody in America cares about my lock score. I'm going at you in a lock competition.
It's going to be very
fitting.
fitting.
I'm locking up the Texans, baby.
Where after this weekend, Mark's record is 9-11.
Yeah.
Can I know what you're doing now.
You're 11 and 8. He is what, 9 and 10.
I'll get to 10 wins so that I don't have that thing maybe, but I'm going to get it this week.
It'd be harder the next 2 weeks to pick it wrong. This week there's some big spreads. You're more likely to pick it.
You know what Kaiser Soze's doing over here, by the way? I got you all figured out, Sessler.
What? I think this is exciting if I were
to
enough.
Greggy with the sandwich props where he doesn't like where he is in the standings, so he shifts into, now I'm just going to be fully unpredictable guy, and my record's going to be really bad because I always go with crazy picks, and then it kind of mitigates that you've struggled in the standings because I'm just wild picks guy. I'm wild picks guy.
No, in fairness to Mark, he's only doing this after he's clinched last place anyway.
Waka waka.
We've already accepted that he's going to be last place.
I have said for months now that the Texans...
Honk.
Well, no, I'm actually...
Yes.
I said the Texans would win 2 playoff games for a long time now. So I'm standing behind that.
I respect that.
Shifting off
I respect the hell. I thought you said they were going to get to the second round.
I said they would win. I said they could. I didn't, but I'm now saying they will.
This is the second straight week where, like, the lock I think I was going to go with, I'm now not going to because just you guys had a lock off. It just seems unfun to be.
I'm quietly, by the way, looking to, because the standings mean a lot to me. # beat Gregg in the second half now. That's what I'm going for. So if that motivates you in any way,
no, I could care.
He's going to say it doesn't. He's going to say, I don't care about anything. He really wants to beat me. Now that he knows I want to beat him.
You are 5 games back. This competition has been so boring that it's already locked over. Last week, I'm already picking up since it doesn't make it.
No one is looking at first, second half splits in the lock competition. Literally,
I am.
I know.
But
you
here
are,
is
like no one else.
Here is because I know you too. Gregg's mania. Now that he knows I'm tracking it, he needs it. He's very.
In this case, you couldn't be more wrong.
Nope, I'm right.
This is as if the Ravens have already won their Super Bowl for the 4th time in 5 years, and then they have to go on a barnstorming tour that means absolutely nothing. Like, can you imagine how anticlimactic it is to continue to
Give me
play
that second half title
after you've clinched it with 5 weeks to go? You were eliminated in week 16. That's a disgrace.
Give me that second half chip.
I think you need to go to one of these. I don't know if they still have these stores. So they make the trophies, right?
Yeah,
kids and stuff. Get a second half of the season trophy that you
can have.
On your desk.
It's yours.
Someone out there, make it for Dan.
I might, please send me it. Well, I got to win it first. I got to win it.
You will win it.
You've won it.
But you're not going to.
I've given.
Actually,
I'm up a game on Gregg right now.
Why am I rooting for you when I've just gone? Like, I hope people care about like Jimmy Johnson versus Michael Strahan's like game picks as much as they seem to.
No one.
We're assuming that.
I have never once cared about those things when we watch them.
So we're making an assumption that people care about us doing that.
It always worries me.
Oh, worry. It keeps you up at night, I'm sure. It's the passion in which the conversation happens. That's what it's about.
Yeah.
But you could have a big wooden you should also make it like a 6-foot tall trophy that you put in your.
Well, I'm not going to make it. If someone makes me, I won the second half 2023-24 trophy?
There is a pathway to you making it.
You've won it already.
You ordering it.
What do you mean I won it already?
I'm just saying you've won.
I need to
make
defeat
it
you.
Week 6 or whatever it is. Then it's
no, because I see what you're doing. You're trying to minimize my effort here, and what I'm trying to do is beat you in the second half of the season.
You've got it.
See, and you're trying to belittle me, and it's not successful because I will defeat you the way I must, which is from week 9 on.
So behind the glass, like they'd made a grave error before the show. They told us that the Fast Channel can only hold an hour and 15 minutes of content to keep the fat, cut the fat. And we've gone on about 25 minutes
beefy
about this.
All right, let's get back on track. And by the way, this is the Joe Buck, Troy Aikman, Lisa Salters, Laura Rutledge team. So we got a foursome here, and it is. I was looking forward to it because, by the way, the Ravens have now activated Dalvin Cook to the active roster, and they waived Melvin Gordon. And I was hoping, because I've been predicting that Dalvin Cook will have a big playoff game to make Jets fans feel bad. And I was hoping it was going to be Romo going, Jim, it looks like he's got some gas in the tank. But it's Buck and Aikman. I don't know if we're going to get the same enthusiasm about a big Cook game, not in the fun way. Greg's mad about the talking now.
No, I don't foresee Dalvin Cook having much of a role. Why would he?
Well, he's active. He's on the. What if he gets hot? You go with the hot hand.
You're also perceiving him to suddenly be a fresh, young, great running back just because he left the Jets. The evidence that we've seen physically.
I would take my chances, and it's who knows with this group, but that he does not finish in the top 2 or even 3 in rushing yards on the Baltimore Ravens. I think I would take Justice Hill, Lamar Jackson, and Gus Edwards over him.
I guess we'll have to see. Anything else on this game?
I just think it's D'Amico Ryans' last chance to show how special he is, because Derek Barnett, Desmond King, these guys were on other teams very recently, and then he brings them into the Texans, and they're really productive. To me, that's the number one thing you can show as a coach, that you take other guys who weren't productive for their teams and you immediately put them into your system and they're productive. And I do think defensively with Will Anderson and Grenard, if Grenard is healthy and Barnett's been playing well, that's maybe one spot that tackles for the Baltimore Ravens haven't been great. I'm with you, Dan. This is the game I'm most confident in. And
lock it up.
No, I'm not.
Feel that way.
That seems boring.
I want to lock against both of you. Let's do it.
But I've been doing it all year. With the Ravens, I think it could be close, and then they just pull away. By the way, the Ravens are minus 425 in this game.
I'm taking the points too. I think this is a double-digit win for both.
I would too if I had to choose. But
really, the Texans are allowing about 20 points a game all year long. That would mean they don't.
They were playing in the AFC South, and I don't know. I like the Browns, but didn't love them. This is now they're in the big leagues. That's all. Now, who knows? Maybe they're one of those magic carpet ride teams, and in that case, Mark, you will be a happy man come Sunday night. Let's get to the second game on Saturday, the other big underdog affair. So it's the Green Bay Packers, who just horrified everyone in North Texas by slaughtering the Cowboys at Jerry World. So their reward now is to go from Jerry World up to the Big Bell Bottom to face the Niners, also 9.5 points. Isn't it crazy? The symmetry between the Texans and Packers.
Absolutely.
Even to a yard and to a point on the passer rating and just the counting stats of what Stroud did and what Love did last week, to where the teams are record-wise, to even the spread against the number 1 seed, the following point, exactly 9.5. So it is the Spider-Man, 2 Spider-Man meme thing going on here. Will this be another game, Mark, that, like you say, you think the Texans win outright and shock the world in Baltimore? You give the Packers the same shot in Santa Clara.
This to me is a concerning matchup because I think the focus, if you look at it, is the Joe Barry defense. I mean, good defenses have not been able to stop the multi-layered weaponry of the Niners, and it's guys like Devondre Campbell, Quay Walker trying to stop Christian McCaffrey. This feels to me like a Christian McCaffrey outburst. And you kind of base it around that, and then you go to town from there. I don't love the spread because I do think that if you just look at Jordan Love over the back half of the season, has been incredible. He's led the NFL with 19 offensive touchdowns on 3rd and 4th down in this season down the stretch, and like he's really only thrown like picks on downfield throws. He's been really efficient on shorter throws. He's got the second most touchdowns in the league. I just see an offense in Green Bay that has grown up. Like, even when you have like Matthew Stafford on the Super Bowl Rams, it took them half a season to really find out who they were. Mm-hmm. And for everyone else to kind of warm up around Matthew Stafford, this is a more incredible story to me because it's like incredibly young, untested players who are becoming, they've got a star quarterback and really incredible weapons. Like Aaron Rodgers has to be watching this from afar and saying, where was this when I was here? Aaron Rodgers 0-3 against the Niners in the playoffs as a Green Bay quarterback. Jordan Love, I think, has a better shot to inflict problems to the Niners defense than Aaron Rodgers did in the past. Even when they were at home in freezing temperatures and that Green Bay offense couldn't do a single thing, this is a completely different team. So I see a shootout potentially. I don't like this 9.5 points thing. But to your question, Dan, like the Niners they're not going to crumble here. I think this team knows its own playoff history and they seem completely unified and ready to go to battle.
Yeah, I think no matter how well you think Jordan Love is playing, he's probably playing better. Like right now, he's arguably the best quarterback in the league. Like that's the level he's playing at. Because some of those touchdown passes, usually I think touchdown passes are a little overrated because it's a function of a team. And you get down there, are you a team that runs on the goal line or are you a team that passes? But these touchdown passes, including 2 of them last week, are like they're incredible dimes. Like the level of difficulty on these throws is just okay. And I'm not going to go as far as you said, Mark, that he's more dangerous than like peak Aaron Rodgers, although those teams for the Packers obviously didn't play well in the playoffs, and we didn't see that coming necessarily.
I'd say January.
Right.
Yeah.
That's totally fair. But I would say like this is a different Niners defense. I don't think it's as good as 2019. I know the numbers are overall pretty good. You can run against them. The way that Aaron Jones has been playing lately and the way this offensive line has been protecting Jordan Love is a huge part of why Jordan Love has been so good. He's been in favorable situations. The play action's obviously working really well. His numbers are just crazy. And even though the players are good, I think it's a tough matchup for the 49ers defense in a way that, yes, maybe it can be a shootout. Hopefully you get the ball first like they did a week ago. And I really believe in the whole shorten the game thing. Usually I'm not into the shorten the game thing, but when you got a defense this bad and you're a team that goes on a lot of long drives, if it can be a tighter game where you have a couple of those 7-minute drives and suddenly you're ahead on the road, that's the route, I think, for Green Bay to win, is a lot of long drives, running the ball. And I think they could do it. I think they could do it in terms of scoring enough points to keep it interesting.
I think it's interesting if you're the 49ers and you're watching that Cowboys game and you saw just the aggressive manner in which they just approached even the coin toss, where Packers win the toss, they say, we want the ball. A lot of teams defer. And to go right down the field, that set the tone for that entire game. And like I said on Sunday, just seeing the way Jordan Love was carrying himself on that first drive and the throws he was making and the comfort he had in the pocket, escaping the pocket, setting his feet, keeping his eyes up, putting it right on the money, is like he's going to do that. He's going to come into San Francisco and be the same, like, outstandingly confident quarterback. And I'm wondering if the Niners, like, even with the coin toss, like, who wins the coin? Would the Niners change their game plan to not put Love in that same situation? Do they want to get on the field first and try to, like, set the tone? Because I think such a, especially in the playoffs, the very beginning of these games, if you punch an underdog in the face, that can set the tone and you could take control early. But if you get the Green Bay Packers with another big score early to get rolling, it's going to be the same thing in San Francisco that it was in Dallas, where the whole building gets quiet and the nerves start to act up, and then maybe you make a mistake. Brock Purdy, as much as we like Brock Purdy, is not above making mistakes and forcing the ball. And I don't need to, when you look at number 1 seeds, and we could talk about how these are the best number 1 seeds, we're not that far removed from Christmas night. And the Niners in a similarly huge spot at home, getting absolutely torched by the Ravens and looking like a bad football team. They're not impervious.
No, I'm with you on that.
Joe Barry's defense now, though.
That's true.
Okay,
I would say this, though. Like, if you look at Green Bay's offense, like, I think a lot of times with young teams that are, like, unplayoff tested, you go on the road and you get torched, you learn a lesson, you come back the next season. Like, 8 of Green Bay's top offensive games in terms of EPA, 8 out of 11 have been on the road. Like, their 5 highest point totals have been on the road, including last week when they destroyed Dallas. And it's like, I think this is a team that kind of like the Texans. That's why they're such a mirror of each other. They don't even know what they don't know on some level.
Right.
And it is this interesting matchup because it's like Shanahan offense versus Shanahan disciple offense. There's a lot. It's like I always wonder with that kind of thing, like Shanahan and LaFleur are teaching each other's defenses, like how to handle each other's offenses. They practice against a lot of this. They're not identical, but it's like they come from the same, plant or tree or whatever you want to call it, whatever shrubbery.
And
I think it's a tree.
And they're both like I thought it was funny a theme.
I mean, I know, but it's just like it's
everywhere.
Not, it is a tree,
Like a bush.
but it's like all
Like hedges.
That's
It's
all
like
nature.
a long hedge.
The same earths.
Earth.
We're
covered.
There was like kind of a theme between sources and people.
Jim, it's the Earth.
This week with these two teams that like both coaches are just so happy that they have quarterbacks who kind of just run the system. Like Jordan Love just
versus like Aaron Rodgers
versus Aaron Rodgers and even Jimmy G to an extent. It was maybe not totally embracing like doing everything. They were trying to meet in the middle where it's like these two guys are very similar in a way that they're great against pressure. Like their numbers when they're pressured has been excellent this year. It's heavy play action. I would take Jordan Love long term over Brock Purdy. I don't even think that's controversial, although I'm sure some people would take Purdy. I don't think that'd be crazy either. But Love is just that special. But man, I think I would still. I guess I would take the points here. But man, I don't think there's any chance that the 49ers offense doesn't put up 35 points in this game. And that's where I sort of disagree. Like if they're down 14-3, yes, it'll be the playoffs and it'll be tense in there. I actually still have faith that this 49ers team will get going unless the Packers can really shorten the game offensively. They are going to torture Devondre Campbell and Quay Walker in this game. Kyle Shanahan will. There's just too many weapons. I think starting with CMC, I don't see a great scenario where the Packers' run defense is like overly competitive in this game. It was nice for the Packers what they did last week. I still think the last 6 drives of the game count like a little bit, and more importantly, the rest of the game. Not
as much as the first 6.
The first 4. They played 4 good drives, and then they basically gave up touchdowns after that. They gave up a scoring drive.
Right, but they're in a totally different defense, just trying to bleed clock at that point.
People say that, but like they were just playing
Dak
their
threw
defense.
for 400 yards in that game, and it's like we knew what was going on in the last quarter and a half.
I guess I put a ton more weight into the season as a whole than those 4 drives.
They did generate turnovers, though. They did that against Jared Goff.
Well, that's
on
what I'm saying.
Thanksgiving.
Like, why can't? And I know it's a Joe Barry defense, and it's been suspect throughout the year, but the Dallas offense, which is not quite the San Francisco offense.
It's not even close, I don't think.
Okay.
This has been a historically good offense.
Let's not move the goalposts
yeah.
here. I mean, we were singing Dak's praises as if not the MVP, right behind whoever wins it. CeeDee Lamb, who was playing at a level that was an all-time wide receiver level. Jake Ferguson, Tony Pollard had a big game going into the playoffs, and there were a lot of people. Brandon Cooks was on the rise. Like that was a excellent Cowboys offense, and all the data backs it up. And the Packers got them flustered early on, and because the offense played so well, it put the quarterback on the other side in a position where he was frazzled and made mistakes. I'm just saying that I could see Brock Purdy suffering the same fate if the Green Bay Packers could get off to a hot start. I think this is a game that I don't feel comfortable about the home team covering. I think Jordan Love and the Packers are playing at such a high level that I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt that their defense will find ways to slow down San Francisco and put pressure on the quarterback. And I think this is a close game. You know what? I'm going to pick the Packers. I'm going to do it. I'm not going to lock it up, but I'm going to say this
outright win.
I'm going to say this will be a year where both number 1 seeds don't survive, and I'm going to go something crazy, 30-27.
I think when you think about like how they could do it, Charvarius Ward, I think, was overlooked for the All-Pro team. Ultimately, he might be the dude. Him and Snead, like he should have made first team, maybe over Sauce even on this year. And it's like, but Ward can only do so much. That's the thing about this Packers offense is like, you never know who's going to pop up. Jayden Reed didn't have a catch last week. He could be their leading receiver. Wicks, like Ward can only cover one of those guys. Dobbs, the tight ends, I'm with you. But man, I just disagree because I think this is the best 49ers offense we've seen by far. And like, yeah, it was a good Cowboys offense, but they were like 7th in DVOA going into last week. The 49ers have the best offense, by the numbers of the last like 5 years, including their own 49ers things like Ayuk, Debo, everything I've been led to believe about this team is that they are special. Yes, Rashawn Gary could get around the end maybe on McKivitz, and like you could have a crazy turnover game. Anything can happen. The Packers are a worthy opponent being there, but nothing shows me that their defense can
gonna?
hold up for 60 minutes. No, this one doesn't seem as fun either. I think they'll cover if I had to guess. I think it might be a little bit of a letdown of a Saturday.
I think what it comes down to, Mark, is I'm deep in my heart, and I know it was the Ravens, but I guess I don't trust Brock either. That I feel like he could make mistakes in this game, and that could potentially turn it, like not just minor mistakes, like Dak mistakes from last week that can swing a game.
The one
field position, touchdown, whatever.
To your the prediction that you came up with there, there is one thing about these Shanahan teams, and it dates back years, but this year, in close games, they're 1-4 in close games, and they in Brock Purdy and friends have been 0-4 in game-winning drive opportunities. And so if the Packers can hang around, they suddenly become more dangerous by the minute. But I think this will be a operation that allows the Niners to go 2-4 in close games. I think they're going to win 27-24.
And let's not forget, Kyle Shanahan has his share of ghosts as well this time of year. So,
but not this next. But not this time of year, not this weekend. He actually, I believe, leads all head coaches in playoff winning percentage.
But I'm saying he's blown title games, he's blown Super Bowls. Okay, he hasn't blown a divisional round game yet, but his ability to close out games in which they're winning in the second half, that's haunted him multiple times.
So does Matt LaFleur.
Sure. I mean, since week 9, these are the best two offenses in the league by base.
Well, I mean, especially against the Niners, actually. So does Matt LaFleur.
Right. Shanahan's kind of owned this matchup. I guess I hear what you're saying on Brock, and I think I'm slightly lower than consensus on Brock, and I hear what you're saying, but I just feel like, that's going to happen if they ever run into a good defense. That's not going to happen. They're not going to play a good defense this year until the Super Bowl if they make it. There are no good defenses left in the NFC other than the 49ers.
I don't even know what a good defense is anymore in this league, to be honest with you. We keep on seeing them get embarrassed and picked off. So
one just got waxed.
I guess I would say ones that are capable of stepping up and having a difference-making game. And I would say
they did it last week, Greggy.
I would say that
this team
the
did
Chiefs
that last
are
week.
capable. The Bills are capable. The 49ers are capable. The Ravens are certainly capable of having those sort of games. These other teams, they're pretty mediocre.
Gotcha. I hear you.
Arik Armstead is back, by the way, and he has been the Jenga piece in terms of their run defense, which is going to be important for San Francisco. They're quite healthy, but same thing you said with the Ravens are true. The 49ers haven't played a game in forever. Not only have they not played in 3 weeks, but think of the games they played after that Ravens game. I guess it was just the Commanders, and then they were resting some starters.
A long time ago.
Forever.
Jim, any given Saturday night. All right, let's take a break. Did you pick the game?
I'm going to take the 49ers 41-31. Let's
go
way over.
All right, let's have some fun.
And by the way, the money line here, 49ers minus 440.
All right, let's take a break, and when we get back, we'll hit a little bit of NFL news, and then we'll hit the Sunday games. All right, welcome back. Yes, we'll take a little break now from the divisional round preview to hit what's going on in the news. And let's start with the new news out of Dallas. We just talked about it on the Wednesday show. What is the decision that will come out of Jerry World around Mike McCarthy and the future of that organization after another disappointing playoff loss, this time in the wild card round against the Packers? And the news broke late on Wednesday that Mike McCarthy will return to the Cowboys. Jerry Jones released a statement as well, detailing the team's unprecedented regular season success, 3 straight years of 12 wins, but also putting it out there and letting it, again, this is the ghost. We have struggled in the playoffs, but we believe what we have in place is good enough to eventually get over the hump. So Mike McCarthy will get a 5th year with the Cowboys, just like in his 5th year with the Packers, they won the Super Bowl. So that is what Jerry's mind track is on, if that makes any sense to you. Here is Zaddy himself. Zaddy, who, he probably thought he was done, just like everybody else on Sunday. Now he's back on the podium with the star behind him, ready to announce his plans for the future.
I believe that the direction, the leadership, everything is in place. And I'm not very comfortable talking about myself, but I came here to win a championship. I didn't come here to get another contract or anything other than that.
Hell no.
I came to Dallas
Ain't
to
about
win
money.
a championship, and that's why I'm standing here. And buy into us.
Bye.
Oh, Zaddy, you're unkillable.
We need to do a better job, by the way, on the headshot we're using for Zaddy. I mean,
I think it's accurate.
we got.
I don't have Greg.
We had a long conversation about this because it was the same one Sunday Night Football was using. But yeah, you should take another.
Dan wants like John Hamm's picture to be put. It's like that's not where we're going.
What do you mean?
This.
What are you trying to shame McCarthy?
I think McCarthy is a manly figure, and that is an accurate headshot. I will leave it at that. And I would say one thing about this whole thing is you kind of laid this out almost exactly, that you kind of thought this would be a good idea for the Cowboys, Dan. Before these triple 12-win seasons, they had 3 out of 4 seasons where they won less than 10 games, and they were a non-factor. I guess the one thing you could go on, I know that there's the non-momentum Gregg and Claybon worlds, and I get that, but I don't
You're now
you are part of that, but there is
this has nothing to do with momentum, though.
Well,
let him cook. Let him cook, Greg. Where's
he going?
It's
something different than that.
That's
it's
during the game.
Mike McCarthy.
This is continuity.
Mike McCarthy, to your point, probably thought he was gone. Dak Prescott, people were questioning his future. He's coming off like a disaster, and I think if anything, this Cowboys team has so much to prove because this story is so embedded that no one's even pay attention during the regular season. Maybe not a momentum thing, but maybe psychologically, they are the team with the chip on their shoulder. That said, I struggle to go down any of these paths ever again until they're literally being announced out of the tunnel at the Super Bowl.
Well, good luck with that. We're going to talk about it a lot.
I know, but I'm saying I wonder if it's it went so far, they all thought it was so cooked and done.
So
and
perhaps, Greg, I oversimplified it a little bit yesterday when I said, all right, so McCarthy's in his contract year, Dak's in his contract year, just let him play it out and let's see where the chips fall. The one catch here now is, okay, so you brought back the head coach, and I had thrown out this idea of, make the team better, make some adjustments, have a nice draft, and maybe go at it one more year. It's a little more complicated in the sense that if you want to free up some dollars to help make the team better, that is, in large part, you have to restructure Dak's deal, which means getting in deeper with him, whether it's funny money or not. It goes from 1 year to potentially a big contract where he's the highest paid player in the world. So there still is this challenge to me where, okay, you're going to let the coach play out his contract, but are you going to now go all in on the quarterback? So that will be the next step. What do the Cowboys do with Dak's contract? That's going to be a storyline, like it or not, as well this winter.
I think they will adjust his contract, give him more money. We'll see. You're keeping Mike McCarthy because you think he works with Dak Prescott. I don't think you keep Mike McCarthy to bring in some new quarterback. That doesn't make sense. I think there could be changes. Dan Quinn could get a job and be interesting. If he doesn't get a job, is he definitely back? There's some thought in Dallas that might be a change, which is kind of wild, but I think this is both a reasonable decision. It makes sense, and it probably won't work. But I don't know what else would. By work, I mean you make the Super Bowl. The bar is so high. It's a veteran team, and they have some young players certainly, but they have a lot of really good players. So unless you had a better option, to me, the number one problem is there's something in the water. There's something there with Jerry Jones that they're built up to be these huge superstars in Dallas, and it's I don't know. I don't know what it is. They're bad at self-scouting. Whatever it is, they can't get over the hump, but I think this is probably their best chance to have another crack at it. I don't hate it. I'm with you, Dan.
Surprised.
And I'm not even a big McCarthy fan. I just don't have any. I think whatever's going on there is bigger than Mike McCarthy. And I trust actually Mike McCarthy and this staff to at least get another crack at it more than Jerry Jones starting anew with some new guy. That seems even like a worse scenario.
There's enough evidence that is probably the likely scenario that they get back to the playoffs.
And the statement that I was referring to that Jarrah put out, he includes in it, while we're all disappointed with the result on Sunday and with our playoff record, I am 100% supportive of him as our head coach and ability to reach our goals. It's even in the statement, you're talking about the failures in the playoffs, which they're America's team. And the narratives and the storylines around them are so ingrained that even in this statement where you're just announcing you're staying with the coach, you have to mention that, oh yeah, we suck in the playoffs, and that will carry them into next January. And the weight will get that much more, and we shall see if they hell, you got to get to the playoffs first. Nothing is assumed. It's just such a long climb, and that's why I think that was in part so devastating for them to just bottom out the way they did.
I don't need like the over. I know it's Zaddy's thing, but like the whole like, hey, trust me. Like all that now they're gonna like overcompensate by talking too confident. There is a report, by the way, from Ed Werder that Dan Quinn will be back if he doesn't get a head coaching job. So,
and that makes sense too, even though they did struggle down the stretch. That is the new rallying cry, Mark. Buy into us.
Buy into us.
Trust me. Wasn't that it last?
I have to participate, but I don't like emotionally.
It worked on me.
You know what you can do? Buy into us.
Buy into us.
I will, in terms of like having to speak about them. To Gregg's point, we will have to speak about them.
All right. In other news, hey, listen. This Bill Belichick coaching the Atlanta Falcons thing, I think it's going to happen. Rap Sheet reported on Thursday, citing sources, former Patriots coach Bill Belichick will have a second interview with the Falcons brass this weekend after meeting with owner Arthur Blank one-on-one this past week. Things are ramping up with the greatest coach of all time. Josina Anderson also reported about the dynamics between Belichick and Rich McKay, the CEO there, and the idea that that's the best fit for Belichick when compared to any other potential landing spot in terms of their ability to work together, whatever that means. So
he's like the CFO. So, but what about the GM there? Are they going to get rid of him? Who knows?
GM's done a pretty good job, I think.
Yeah, from the Saints. What if you're like Brian Johnson? It's the Eagles offensive coordinator who interviewed for the Falcons head coaching job today. It's like you must be feeling like you are just wasting your time. Brian Callahan interviewed, Ajiro Evero,
Sure.
Anthony Weaver, all these other guys, Antonio Pierce. They've interviewed a lot of people, and yet it just feels like if they can make it work with Belichick, it's going to be Belichick. This is going to be wild. We'll wait for it to happen. Fully
McKay is the CEO there, by the way.
Yes.
The GM dynamic, this is Josina's reporting. The GM dynamic in Atlanta is presumably more palatable for Bill in Flowery Branch, that's where Falcons headquarters is, than it would be in Philly. And as mentioned, both sides have been talking about it through this for a while. Thus, my previous reports, I expect Bill Belichick to reunite with some members of his former staffs whenever he makes it official. That's the other big part of this is, what does Arthur Blank, because Arthur Blank is not a dumb man. Arthur Blank saw what happened in New England in those final years and is going to probably be saying to Bill, like, Bill, we're going to let you shop for some groceries here. You're going to have a voice in how the team gets built. But your stabs kind of were butt the last couple of years.
I don't think he is even going to tiptoe.
I think Arthur Blank will say that. They were
15 yards
butt.
of saying anything like that. I don't.
What, really? I mean, I guess.
Well, then this isn't going to work, Greg. If the owner, and these owners are very confident men, successful people, Greg, he's not going to be afraid of Bill Belichick to say
I think
deals.
he is. I think it's very clear. I think he's going to be like, he's not going to be telling him what to do with his coaching staff. First of all, owners shouldn't be doing that to any coach. He's going to let the coach decide his coaching staff, or else what's the point of being a head coach?
It's not telling Bill what to do. It's conversations about what went wrong near the end, and obviously some issues with the coaching staff played a part in the demise of that dynasty.
I think that's a fair. I get that it's because it's Bill Belichick. The dynamic is different than if you were hiring like a coordinator to a head coach for the first time.
The guy isn't flying out to Carolina to interview Chris Tabor. He's flying on his jet to interview Belichick because Belichick's interviewing him.
But flip it around though.
Greg, you're emotional because it's Bill, and I understand.
It's not so much. Forget what the owner's doing. I think it's a fair concern for like the Falcons fans. Like you're getting a latter era Bill Belichick who wants to hire like 4 assistant coaches and 3 of them are from his family. It's like, well, I would like to think that Bell can he change the way he finished in New England, or is it going to just be you're going to have like Bill
I think
O'Brien
it's just an
as your
81-year-old owner
coordinator
who wants a title before he dies, and it's a sort of not a confident move. It's more like, man, I'm out of ideas of how to do this the normal
Greg.
way.
See, you
Let's
just want
go.
this to fail. That's what's going on here.
What are you talking about?
You don't want Bill to have a successful second act out in New
If you don't think I'm becoming a Falcons fan when Bill Belichick is their head coach, you're missing
But
the
you're
whole
calling
point.
it desperate. You're calling it desperate, and like this is a move that an owner that's getting older is making.
Yes,
not
because that's the
thinking
information.
clearly.
I don't know about
like-
thinking clearly, but I think it's sort of just like we've tried it all the normal ways. Here, take my franchise. That's basically it, and that's we'll see if it works.
Do you also think that Bill Belichick is a fraction of his former self, or is Arthur Blank hiring the best coach of all time?
I don't think he's the same as he was. I think there's a scenario where it could work out pretty well. I mean,
You better get him a quarterback. That's goes without saying.
right away.
I mean, you could go win that division.
Not
You
Kirk Cousins.
You could have some fun.
Let's
He's
go.
going to be a good game day coach. I think he might be reinvigorated a little bit.
I think it's and yes, we're going to get to it when it becomes official, but well worth the gamble, unless like Charlie Weiss is the offensive coordinator. Like, can someone talk to Bill about getting some fresh young minds in the Bills?
Does a team that pumped in fake crowd noise into their stadium want to sell more tickets or sell out every game? You would with Bill Belichick.
Absolutely.
I mean, not that they weren't already.
If you don't think Josh McDaniels is his offensive coordinator, I get it.
See, that's what I'm saying. This is crazy.
It's happening.
But they did have success together.
Yeah, with Tom Brady. Go look at Josh McDaniels anywhere else minus Tom Brady. Like when he went to the Rams, like last.
Oh, look at Belichick anywhere else without Tom Brady.
Well,
we're going to go down that road.
You know,
if we're going to go down that road, Mac Jones almost won Rookie of the Year with Josh McDaniels over Jamar Chase. He went to the Pro Bowl. So I don't hate McDaniels on the staff. The most recent
I don't
example.
want Josh McDaniels as head coach. OC is a little different.
Yeah. Do you want to hit on what's going on here in Los Angeles with the Chargers too?
Well, just quickly, they interviewed Mike Vrabel today, which was interesting. They've interviewed a lot of people for their GM and
Jim
their
Harbaugh as well.
Head coach. Jim Harbaugh was one. Dan Quinn was one. Leslie Frazier, our coworker, was one.
Hey.
I think they gave Kellen Moore. Remember Kellen Moore? He was the hot guy last year at this time.
Super hot.
Not happening now. So they've had a variety of interviews, but it's been interesting. Been quiet around Vrabel.
Go
Not a lot of
defensive
interest.
coach. Interesting.
Man, I feel like that's Harbaugh's job to lose, but it may be listen, you also got to pay him. Are the Chargers going to pay Harbaugh?
They also keep interviewing guys who have connections to Harbaugh there for the GM job, so I think you would be right. And then, Cliff Kingsbury got an interview as the OC with Chicago, which is interesting because he was the quarterbacks coach of Caleb Williams last year. And as USC fans will note, the year where Caleb Williams looked much worse than the year before when Cliff Kingsbury wasn't there, for what it's worth.
I'm looking at what like CJ Stroud's doing this year, and I'm like, if I'm the owner of the Chargers, and I'm like, I don't have to deal with Harbaugh being a pain in the ass, but just go get the OC Slowick, pair him with Justin.
Yeah, he's got
and I don't have to deal with all the other stuff, and maybe I get a guy that's on the come up that's much cheaper. That feels like a potential Chargers move too.
I mean, I would say this: when they went and got Brandon Staley, there was a similar DNA of like a really young hot coach. I mean, Slowick has had, I think, 8 years in the league, and I think the first 7, 4 of them, he was a defensive coach, an assistant. 3 offensive, then an offensive coordinator. So he's young. He worked.
Could sell that too in an interview. I work on both sides of the ball.
We worked for a Pro Football Focus. I mean, there's a lot of Brandon Staley like elements going on there. I don't know if it's a little bit of a risk, but he's certainly like shown we can do this year.
Spicy. All right, let's get back to the games. Let's head to Sunday, the early game. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers head to Ford Field to face the Lions. Now, this is also a sizey spread, 6.5 points. The Bucs are a 4 seed NFC South champion who, put the woeful. I'm going to say it. I can't believe I'm going to say this. Never thought I would. The moribund Eagles were put to sleep on Monday night. So the Bucs advance and get the Lions coming off that 1-point win over the Rams in one of the most emotional and fun moments in modern history for the Lions. So. Tirico back on the call, back in Detroit with Collinsworth and Stark on the sideline. Like it, Greg. I really love this game because I think you got all the fun as a football fan. You're going to get to enjoy that again about the vibe in Detroit and all the history around the team. And then you got this Tampa Bay team that is in full-on nobody believes in us mode, and no one's rooting for us. We have nothing to lose. And who's the one, if you had to pick one middle-of-the-road quarterback to be the guy that's walking out on the field there? It's Baker. It's Baker.
Right. When you said earlier this week, usually when you get to this point in the season, there's like 6 or 7 teams that have a real shot or are exciting. There's one surprise team, and then there's one that you don't think shouldn't really be there. And you thought these matchups were great because we didn't have one of those teams. And as you were saying that, I thought you were setting up that the Bucs are that team. Now, they're fun, and they've earned their way here, but over the course of the season, they've been mediocre. They're pretty average on offense. They're average on defense. They have players we recognize, and they have moments, but they haven't really shown anything over the course of the season until that wild card game where they could have like a big time statement victory, like really convincing win. That was their best game of the season. It was against a team that looked like they were ready to go home. it's just what Baker we get. And it's usually whether you get pressure on him or not. It's not a secret. These two quarterbacks, their numbers are outstanding when they're not pressured, and they're not great when they are pressured. It's just Goff is even more extreme than Baker. But can you get pressure on him? Maybe it's Aiden Hutchinson versus Gadecki on the right side, but they've played well. For the most part in that first matchup, Tristan Wirfs handled the hell out of Aiden Hutchinson. He had his worst game of the entire season. They move Hutchinson around, so sometimes he's in the middle and on the right tackle. But if you can protect Baker, you're going to have a little bit of a chance. I think the Rams made the Lions linebackers especially look bad in coverage last week. And that's where you can get Chris Godwin or you can get Cade Otton over the middle of the field, and Baker can do work there.
It was a while ago, but when they played the Detroit Lions 120-6, and Goff,
weird game.
It was a weird game. The Lions had almost nothing on the ground, but their running backs were banged up. That was the lowest points the Bucs have scored all year. But Goff, when he's played Tampa's defense, he's got a 2-1 record. He's got at least 353 passing yards in every one of those games. He's thrived. So I think it's kind of interesting because like the history of these two quarterbacks, obviously both discarded by their first teams. Like it was Goff that last week brought Detroit like the decades-waited playoff game. I mean, Baker Mayfield did the same for Cleveland. And so I find it interesting on that front. Like they're both in playing style. You're wondering which quarterback makes the most mistakes because that probably leads to DNA of where the game goes. But I don't know. If you were the Niners and if they did the playoffs differently and the number one seed could pick which team they wanted to play, of course you're picking the Bucs of all these teams that are left. Like you wouldn't want to play the Packers. I feel like that's sort of a ridiculous situation. And Detroit, like this is one team where like the home stadium, the journey matters a lot. I think crowd noise last week, the energy in that place galvanized the team. And I guess it's simplistic to say all that, but it's like you are human beings in an environment where like you're in a Roman Coliseum and the crowd is going
Go ask Dan Campbell
nuts.
and those players.
Absolutely.
The way they talked about it after the game.
I think if you're the Lions, you've got to be thrilled that you got a really hot and cold Bucs team that last week, and I think, I couldn't have been happier for Mayfield. And the Bucs have better players than people realize. They've got a good group of wide receivers. Their running game's been a little bit better. I don't think it'll happen this week, but it's like when the Bucs falter, they really do. And we saw that they almost lost to the Panthers 2 weeks ago. So I think if you're Detroit, you've got to be like pretty thrilled with this matchup.
Yes, I agree with that. I mean, it's set up very well for them because even if we all knew that even before that game was played because it was like the winner of this Rams-Lions game gets the corpse that was the Eagles or the Bucs, who are not a highly respected team coming out of a weak division. But I also in fairness to the Bucs, you don't think about it this way, but they've lost one game since the calendar turned over to December. Like they have been playing winning football, building confidence, and Baker was banged up obviously throughout the end of that season, but he didn't look that way this past Monday night. So, and
they said he's almost fully healthy.
Yeah, I was going to say I don't remember him taking any huge licks in that game.
Morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous,
and I really like it. Now the question to me is, can the Bucs defense, which is filled with veterans and dudes that have been through the wars before, can they put the pressure on Goff? Goff was outrageous in the wild card round. 21 for 21 for 266 and a touch when he wasn't pressured in that game. So he will, as we've seen all season,
frazzled a few times in the big spots and almost lost the game with that lateral, with the sack where he ended up tripping.
He was pressured on 30% of his dropbacks per Next Gen Stats, and it was 1 of 6 for 11 yards. And that's kind of, isn't that the story forever, Greg? That it's like it can change real quick with Goff, and it all depends on making him move his feet and speed him up a little bit. Can the Bucs defense do that?
Right. He's been great against the blitz, which is against what you have thought of over the course of the season. And I think it's more because they're great as an offense against the blitz. You thought about it. I thought about it on Monday night. It's not about just Jalen Hurts. It's about the offensive line. It's mostly about the coaching. Ben Johnson has had answers. He had answers in that first game. Even though they couldn't finish drives, they moved the ball really well against the Bucs throughout. So it's good that they've already seen him. This Lions offensive line has a reputation of being great. There's been times this year where I don't think they've played great, but they should win the matchups on the outside here. The Bucs pass rushers aren't great on the outside. On the inside, it's Vea and it's Cansey, and Kalijah Cansey was awesome last week. I think that's a good-on-good matchup, but that's maybe where the Lions are a little weaker up front with Glasgow or whoever it's going to be. Even Ragnow, I think, struggled last week. If you can get some interior pressure on Jared Goff. Like, you have a chance in this game, obviously.
I think it matters that they talked about Sam Laporta being like another healthier week, like he's getting better. Played well last week. I mean, it kind of didn't even look hurt to me. Amon-Ra St. Brown almost never gets talked about, and like he couldn't have been more dangerous a week ago. It's like if you're the Bucs, you've got to shut down a lot more weapons than you did last week when you played an A.J. Brown-free Eagles team that was falling apart at the seams.
They give up a ton of big plays all year. The Bucs are a solid run defense, and they've given up about as many explosive plays as any team in the NFL. And so it could be like a Jameson Williams type of game, getting vertical, because they take their chances and they leave Jamel Dean and Carlton Davis on an island sometimes, and it doesn't work out. The Bucs, on the other hand, they're always trying to go deep. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Baker is such a high variable quarterback. I don't think he's had like an incredible year, but I think he been the best version of Baker, where he's about the average starting quarterback. The way he gets to average, though, is like he's had 6 or 7 really impressive games, and he's quietly had about 6 like awful games. And his average is not like just staying right in the middle. It's either it's going to be great or it's not going to be great. And I don't know. The Lions give up a lot of big plays. They're not a great defense. They're much better stopping the run than they are stopping the pass. So maybe this would be a good matchup. I think relatively they are a good matchup.
I think I'll pick the Lions here. But I love this game. I just think it really sets up well, and for Baker, who has always been, like him or not, has always been good theater. I really do. It would not stun me if like a major conversation Sunday night is, holy shit, Baker went off and is playing in the NFC title game, because I just think he's all about getting into these pockets, right? These pockets of confidence and where the moment meets him, as unlikely as it may be, and then he seizes it. Now, could it go the other way and he has 4 picks? Yes. But I think he balls out in this game, and then it becomes, does the Detroit offense have the ability to put up 30 points? And I think they will. But I think I'm going to do a Sessler special here. I'm going to go Lions 31, Bucks 30, and like a classic, a divisional round classic. And that's my pick.
The Bucs are 1-6 when they've allowed more than 20 points, and I think that says a lot about some of their offensive games, like where they've not performed. I think the Lions take care of business. It's a more intriguing matchup than I would have thought it was a couple months ago. I'm going to go Detroit 27, Bucs 16.
I hear you guys on the crowd being a factor. But Baker Mayfield actually said he talked to some of the Rams players. 2 Rams legends here going at it, Jared Goff and Baker Mayfield. And the Rams said they've never been in a building like that. They just thought, and they handled it well, ultimately. That maybe that affected those early timeouts, but they were moving the ball on the Lions. I think the Lions defense has more answers than people realize. That the Lions are minus 278 in this game, and I think Brian Branch on Godwin, he can slow him down enough. You're getting some health back here. I think James Houston is going to be active for this game, so Aleem McNeil's been added to the mix here. They're a little better, and I think people have kind of missed how incredibly good Aiden Hutchinson have been the last 3 weeks. 23 pressures, and it's not like 23 pressures in 3 weeks where it's like 21 hurries. No, it's 7 sacks, 8 quarterback hits, and I think 6 more hurries. So I like their defense. I like their offense. I like all the Lions. Let's lock it up.
Hey-o. Hey-o. That's a solid lock, but you might be sweating it. That's all I'm saying.
I wouldn't be surprised if I am sweating it, but this is what you can do when you've finished the competition. Just pick the teams you like.
Maybe in your mind.
That's what I'm doing though. The same note. I've finished the competition and just going.
You're looking to shock the world. Everybody's got their own little competitions going on right now. By the way, the weather in Detroit. Ooh boy, it is going to be cold. Sub-zero, who knows, maybe some snow. And Todd Bowles was asked about this. The Lions, by the way, have played in a dome for 50 years.
Looking forward towards Detroit. The weather has been a factor in some of the playoff games, even for the most prepared teams. Today, it's 13 in Detroit, which doesn't compare to some of the temperatures in the top 2. Any special plans to acclimate the team to not only endure but perform in those temperatures?
It's a long question.
You do know we play indoors, right? And they got a dome. I don't. No, nothing planned. We're indoors, and we only have to be outside for 20 seconds, getting off the bus, going under the thing. So we'll be okay.
He handled that. I mean, I think a lot of
Todd
people.
he could have buried that poor woman.
I think a lot of people have, suspected that was not a sports reporter, but like a local news.
This
reporter.
is a playoffs thing where you see the local news kind of flies in for the first time.
But I mean, I'm sure she wanted to.
50 years though, from the Silverdome to Ford Field. This isn't new. It's not like they reminds me of the first big time when I was 23 years old at the Journal News. They sent me to cover a Mets game, a Mets-Rockies game, and I was over the moon. It was a dream come true to cover a Major League Baseball game. And they sent me and this other guy, Jeff, and we were filling in for Pete Abraham, who now covers the Red Sox for the Globe, but back then covered the Mets. So it was September. They were playing out the string, and so they sent the two young kids there just to get some reps and give them an experience. Damn it, it's the 8th inning, and the Mets are throwing a perfect game. And the Mets had never thrown a no-hitter to that point. So me and Jeff are like looking at each other like, hamana. Luckily, I don't know, luckily, but the perfect game gets broken up, and so there's no historic game, and we're not freaking out because the newsroom was calling up to the press box like, all right, we're going to send somebody to help you guys, and we're like, you're going to have to get down here, you're going to have to go there if this happens. I was like, oh, my God. So go down to the locker room, crisis averted. And I go down and talk to Clint Hurdle, who was like a grizzled old baseball man. He was the manager of the Rockies. And Preston Wilson was a star for the Mets, or a prospect for the Mets that didn't quite work out and then became a star with the Rockies. He didn't play. It was a getaway day. It was an afternoon game. But I was 22, 23. So I asked the question to Clint Hurdle. I go, Clint, any reason why you didn't play Preston Wilson in this meaningless game in the middle of September? And he turns to me and he like looks at me and sees that I'm not cut out for this moment. He goes, is it okay if I give my players a day off? Is that okay with you? Is that okay? And literally I melted into a puddle. And I just thought of Clint Hurdle burying a young journalist and seeing Todd Bowles being a class act with that woman who was way out of her depth in a big spot. That was story time.
He did a good job.
That was a good story. I hadn't heard that one.
All right. Anything else with this game? Do we all make a pick?
I believe we did.
We did.
All right, so then let's move. I can't wait for that game. Just the vibe.
You will have to wait until Sunday. It's not happening.
I like that
I cannot, though.
It's Tirico and Collinsworth on a noon Pacific game, which it just feels nice and counterintuitive.
And we're going to be
transgressive, really.
Yes, it is transgressive. For those of you overseas that have access to Sky Sports and their NFL coverage, we'll be on at halftime of that game, chopping it up. I'm right?
That's right.
That's right. Yeah. So don't go do the halftime thing where you go do other human things.
Do not be a human. Be a football fan 24/7 every second. All right, the last game, and it's a one. Mark, you were saying you're not overly excited for it, but
I did not. That is not what I said.
I get it. You always want new things, but I like classic matchups, and you're only going to get so many. 10 years from now, we're not going to have them anymore. You know what I mean? It's like Patrick Mahomes versus Josh Allen. You know what I treasured? I didn't care, Greg, how many there were. If you gave me Tom Brady and Peyton Manning in January, I was clicking my heels, running to the television set. And I know you don't even want to watch this game, Mark.
First of all,
okay, go ahead.
No, 10 years from now, you still will be getting Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. I promise you.
Mark likes new stuff, though. He was like, give me the Trent Green, Matt Schaub showdown.
No. I was saying
this is new to me. This is interesting.
I was saying that the Texans and Packers are very intriguing to me. I was not discounting Chiefs at Bills. They have played each other a lot. I guess I keep hearing people are so fascinated that Mahomes is playing his first road playoff
You know
game.
how fascinated they are? It's the game of the week. Presented by DraftKings.
But of course it's the game of the week. So I'm not slighting it, but it's just
DraftKings, Mark.
It's the game of the week.
I guess it's just a human thing. Even with me, like when it was Manning versus Brady, like part 19, and there was like these articles coming out, like let's rank the 19 times they played. It was like, come on, people. Like I like to see new things. I like fresh new experiences, Greg.
I'm with Dan that
I'm not going to win this.
You can have it all, though.
Because
you really
got to get the others. This is the more rare thing, ironically, is like it feels like it's happened a lot, but you only get these so much. But you know it's a great rivalry, and this is where I'd push back because This is new. You're getting different versions. Like sometimes you got the Patriots version where he was throwing to Aaron Dobson and they had no defense and they had to score 30 and then Peyton Manning comes back. In this case, like these are totally different teams than they were 2 years ago. And it's interesting to me that the Bills, you feel like they're the minor player in this, right? But they've won 3 straight in Kansas City in the regular season, but they haven't won them in the playoffs. They've lost the 2 that have been in the playoffs. Now it's here at Buffalo where we haven't seen it. And so to me, it is different because this is a totally different Chiefs team with like a great defense.
Kansas City on the road, Mark.
I know, but
it's
like
never
happened.
happened.
And this Bills
anyone
team is
listening
banged
to this
up.
knows that I'm being set up as some sort of straw man person. It's like I actually think if it weren't Tony Romo on the call, I'd be,
Mark's
I'd be more
right. We
excited.
are sick of it. It's like, all right, great.
I did not say that at all.
Everyone's also.
I'll let you play your little parlor game, but it's like literally that's not what I'm saying.
I'm
Like,
also sick of everyone saying it's Tony Romo on Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. You know what? I like Tony Romo.
But you know what?
Josh
You do the
Allen.
same thing to Mark. Put a name on it. That's Mark that says that.
I saw a tweet about it too.
But that I do back. I think part of it is you run out of things to say about Patrick Mahomes. But this is a completely different Chiefs team. I think that you're right. There are elements to this team that there's challenges that were not present. Before it was like a video game or like when Hulk Hogan would like go down to the end and just body slam someone and you'd win every Sunday night main event. And it's like this Chiefs team is
Saturday night main event.
This Chiefs team is vulnerable. This is a Sunday night main event.
But Hulk Hogan would be Saturday night.
Right. It replaced
And it wouldn't
SNL
be the body slam. It would have been the kick to the face followed by the atomic leg drop.
You're right.
You want to just punch me in the
Didn't
face?
he body slam like Andre the Giant?
And then he gave him
the biggest
then he
body
gave him the
slam.
leg drop.
Oh, sure, but that was the biggest body slam in the history of wrestling.
WrestleMania 3.
Right.
In the Pontiac Silverdome.
There you go.
See how it all connects? Madison Behind the Glass thought this was wasteful conversation.
Multiple cities that
connects to
multiple
Detroit
cities
and
that
the big
WrestleMania.
the big old football game up there.
Remember that conversation before the show? We keep it a little tighter today or something?
I don't know what you're talking about. What else?
I
mean, we can end the show right now if we want to stay on
we
time.
literally haven't even talked about this game. I'm excited for the Snead, like L'Jarius Snead last week. My favorite clip of the week was him driving Tyreek Hill into like as Mark would say, Mother Earth, like below the earth. I mean, it was crazy. And
Tyreek even gave him a little pop on social
Yes.
after the game. I've never been bodied like that or whatever the term would be.
And so Snead faced off against Stephon Diggs in this first matchup, which really wasn't that long ago. It was week 14. They matched up for 23 routes. In those 23 routes, Josh Allen tried Stephon Diggs 5 times. The Bills had a total of 3 yards in that game. Snead absolutely destroyed Stephon Diggs, which that's an interesting matchup. If that could happen again, they have a shot, but I do think they're better prepared here with Shakir, with Kincaid, who's getting most of the snaps. And I thought it was interesting last week. They didn't really play Knox and Kincaid together. It was mostly just Kincaid. So they like having 3 receivers on the field, even if it's not Gabe Davis. Just, I think if they were like a basketball team, it's almost like keeping people out of the paint to let a little more space over the middle of the field in general. And since Joe Brady's taken over, the offense isn't better, but it has been different. They've been more willing to run the ball. And I think this matchup, as much as it's about Mahomes and Allen, also might be about like which team will actually stick with the running game and be successful. Because I think both coordinators have shown they will dare the other team to run. Spagnuolo did it quite effectively against Buffalo in that first matchup. Even though Buffalo started that game well, their offense was kind of in quicksand for most of it.
I think one thing that's different about McDermott running this defense, and you know, maybe one of the changes that happened was some of the playoff stuff that happened against the Chiefs was that when they dueled in Week 14, they blitzed at the highest rate they have against Mahomes, and they were more successful doing it. That said, like all this business about Mahomes being on the road, like his completion percentage is higher on the road, his yards per attempt higher on the road, his
still
passer
Patrick
rating
Mahomes.
higher on the road, sack rate lower, and passing success rate higher.
Yes. And if they finish off a couple of drives last week, people are over the moon saying that they're fixed. And we'll see. I think they got the season. Like you were saying, Greg, earlier, you're looking at the whole season. You can't just look at a game. And the whole season tells me they're going to struggle again here. to put points on the board and finish off drives. And that's why I kind of like the Bills in this game, because I think that's what's going to end the Chiefs season. The Bills will finish off the drives that the Chiefs won't be able to. But not to swerve left, but I want to touch on it just because I'm looking at it, I'm staring at it. And I knew it, I felt it, and then I looked at the numbers and my goodness. So Stephon Diggs, weird year.
Yeah.
So he starts the season with 5 100-yard games in his first 6 weeks. Everything is going to plan. Since October 22nd, okay, a loss to the Pats. These are his numbers: 6 for 58, 9 for 70, 6 for 86, 3 for 34, 4 for 27, 6 for 74, 4 for 24, 4 for 48, 5 for 29, 4 for 26, 7 for 87, 7 for 52, and then in the playoff game, more of the same, where he was
7 for 50.
7
that
for
was
50,
the last one.
7 for 52. Yeah, like it's been an odd season. They have not been on the same page. You've seen that frustration, and it's a good thing Khalil Shakir has stepped up this year, and it's a good thing that they now have a Pro Bowl type player in James Cook, because that connection has been off all year.
It makes me believe that this is Stephon Diggs' last run with the Bills. Now, I think he would be an interesting trade candidate. But he's 30. I can't imagine he's just suddenly turned old, but the big plays just haven't been there, and I just have a feeling Gabe Davis's status is really important. I think the injuries are so important for this game for the Bills, because I hear what you're saying, and I'm leaning Bills. Like, I guess I want the Bills because, like Mark, I guess I want something different. I like the idea that they were 6-6 and the way they've rallied, and I like the idea of a Bills-Ravens AFC Championship game. That's really exciting to me. But the practice reports are just massive, especially in the secondary. I'm going to focus it there because there's linebackers, there's other stuff. But Christian Bedford, been their best outside corner. Teron Johnson, an all-pro slot cornerback, both on the injury report, and both seem legitimately like, I don't know if they're going to play or not. Like, they could fully play, they could not. Like, these guys last week have had to count on players we hadn't seen much all season. Damar Hamlin was on the field throughout the end of that game because of injuries. Von Miller played throughout the end of that game and actually had a couple pressures, made me think, I wonder if they go back to Von this week because he showed something. But that was all because of injuries. Their linebackers were gone, and they might get them both back. They might get Bernard and Dodson back. They might get neither back. So Gabe Davis is another question mark. These are like 7 or 8 starters where it's like they might play, they might not, and that's a pretty big deal.
And at that said, like, I'm not scared, and I don't think anyone is scared of like the Chiefs' weapons for the most part. I mean, you want to have those guys in the field.
I'm scared of two, Kelsey and Rashee Rice.
Yeah, we just talked about Stephon Diggs, Mark. Like, Travis Kelce's coming off a game with 3 drops, and he has not been himself this year.
Right.
He's going to need to make the plays that he hasn't been making.
Right. They lead the league in drops, and I guess I'm just wondering if we're everyone waiting for the Chiefs to become last year's Chiefs. It's like, actually, isn't it more likely that their season ends with another duplicate performance where wide receiver X, Y, or Z lets them down in a key spot?
But
that's more likely.
I'm just saying, I think that's that's been a pretty consistent narrative.
And the defense is better, Greg, right? But
it's way better.
Yeah.
It's the best. And I think the route is more that, like, yeah, some of that stuff happens and they win a game 20-16, or they win a game, because, okay, if
this was the Kadarius Toney offsides game where it's like little mistakes cost them the play of the
I
year.
hear what you're saying, though, but like, to that point, they held the Bills down in that game, and even though they weren't great offensively, if not for that call, if not for Toney lining up 6 inches, in the neutral zone, the Bills aren't in this game. And the Chiefs win a game like that against a good opponent because of their defense primarily, and because Mahomes made big plays when it mattered. He ran the ball pretty well last week. I mean, that's a thing. Both of these quarterbacks are going to run the ball well, but you're just going to be more surprised when Mahomes does it. I just can't.
In fairness,
I kind of think they're going to win, and yet I don't want it to happen, so I'm not going to pick it. Sorry, Chiefs fans. We're rooting against you.
If Toney stayed on sides, Josh gets the ball back with about a minute or so to play.
Good to point that out.
I just got a weird feeling about the Bills, and Eric, the producer. I like it, dude. I like the energy. I like that they went through hell and then they came out and survived it. And now Josh Allen at home, running downhill, impervious to anything, pain, and feeling like I like what he said at the end of last week's game was interesting to me, that we're like everybody else now. Like
Right.
we're out of that wilderness where we were fighting for our lives, and I think they're playing with a level of confidence that is going to be the difference against a KC team that's just simply, even though better on defense, not as explosive and not even close. And I think that's why they're going to win. I think they're going to win this game 27-20.
It feels almost fitting that the season, everything kind of went wrong. It kind of feels like it should go right eventually. Like they were heavy favorites for, the last couple seasons, and things just kind of fell apart abruptly, horrifically, big moments. And this year, like, there was lulls, big lulls, and finger on the panic button moments. You fire an OC, you have the Sean McDermott hit piece, and then all of a sudden they're right back here, and it seems like their trajectory is hitting their peak.
I mean, they're undefeated since that article came out.
Yeah, I mean, you have the players in the the coach got a game ball, and you have players yelling in the locker room. You got your back, coach. I mean, there's so many weird moments where this season that they weren't maybe considered a Super Bowl favorite. This is the year where everything seemed like, well, this is where it breaks, the dam breaks, and it all falls apart. And here we are again against the Chiefs, against Patrick Mahomes. But this time,
so good.
We're in Western New York, Bills Mafia home game. It's theater, dude. It's crazy.
There you go. I like that.
And yet, I don't know why in my gut, like all that, the Chiefs remind me so much of the Patriots. I mean, they're so
I see that
different,
too.
but just like all this makes logical sense. And I've been saying all year, like maybe this is the year for the Bills. They get as close as possible, and I'm going to pick them because I want it to happen. And yet, like that's the moment where the champs, and the Chiefs are the champs. They're the defending champs. They've done it twice with Patrick Mahomes. They've literally never not won a divisional round game with Patrick Mahomes. They've won every single one. It's like they are going to be tough to knock out, but I think the Bills can do it. I think Greg Rousseau can have a big-time game. The Chiefs' tackles are where they're a little vulnerable. He had a really nice game the first time I noticed against the Chiefs, too. So get some pressure on Mahomes. Get it done, Bills. Be fun.
I feel like almost every. Oh, here we go.
Sorry, Mark. Didn't mean to cut you off. There is no video
all
this week, but I did want to get on record. The Cincinnati Zoo will be taking the Chiefs in this game. So
Wow.
I'm saying this in a Bills sweater, so I almost forgot to just even mention
The
it.
free falling. It's almost like Nick Sirianni is in Cincinnati right now because they have lost, I believe, 5 of 6. The Zoo, so they need.
Goes bold here though with a road underdog. Even though it's the Chiefs, it's still there were other options out there.
A lot of infighting over there, and it's shown to be a concern. I love what Eric said because I think that's exactly what the Bills have been. And whenever you go back and watch these like documentaries of 3/4 of Super Bowl winning teams, there were these like low points in the season where everything felt like a cataclysmic, like just a mess, just a disaster. And it's like the Bills looked shot and gone to the point where the Zoo. Nick said they weren't going to make the playoffs, and I think he's right at some point in the season. And I think now you're getting a version of Josh Allen and the entire team that is driven and is kind of them against the world, and that's kind of sports.
You know who did it? I think it came up earlier in the show. That early Aaron Rodgers Packers team. I think they were 6-6.
They were super banged up.
They ran off a streak to make the playoffs and just kept winning.
But look at both Giants teams
Bills
that
could do
beat
that.
the Patriots.
They were a 6 seed. The Bills weirdly have all this going on, and yet they were the 2 seed. And
Very strange.
Well,
year.
that's
I mean, here's the thing:
Yeah.
if the Chiefs win this game and then win the Super Bowl, they had those moments too where everyone gave up on them and they hit their darkest moment.
fair.
It all is there.
It was never quite as dark though.
No,
because the Chiefs
no, it
always
wasn't.
had that buffer in that
Absolutely.
division. Yeah.
Right.
The money line here, by the way, is -142 for the Bills. The Bills are 2.5-point favorites. When you're a home 2.5-point favorite, I'm always a little anxious, but it's definitely Vegas being like, I don't know, we don't know.
Because that's almost like the built-in. They build that in as the home.
Exactly.
So Vegas says it's a coin flip.
It's
basically.
basically a coin flip. The
I think
numbers
that's
have
fair.
loved the Bills all season, but there's something about the Chiefs that defy numbers.
Something about you, baby, makes me want to give it to you. That's an MJ deep cut off the Dangerous album. All right. Anything else? Anything else? All right, good. You know where to find us on Sunday night. We're going to have recaps of all the games we just previewed. Check out NFL Plus, where we have the Dreamatorium cooking up Danger this week. And also, Sky Sports, be there on Sunday, because we will. Till then, heed the call.